Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop Vanessa M. Brown. I'm your host and moderator for this evening. I'm excited to be here with you. Excited to be back in the groove again. We've been gone for about 3 weeks. We had to take a little bit of a break to take care of ourselves, but we are grateful to be on and to be on with an amazing author. But before we get into that, I want to bring Bishop Flunder on to us. She's going to help navigate this conversation and help move it along. Bishop Flunder is the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ. She's the presiding prelate of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. Bishop Flunder, always a joy. So glad to have you here. Please greet our online audience.
Well, of course, it is always my joy to sit in and converse and talk, and I think in so many ways be a blessing to those that we are called to as part of Gatekeepers. I know that there's a whole lot of things right now to talk about to concern ourselves with, but I'm very, very pleased today that we're going to talk some about our young people because our young people are our future. We don't have them, we don't have a tomorrow. So I'm thrilled today that we'll be able to talk to someone who has spent an enormous amount of time and energy and effort doing what is necessary to create a path for those who will come not only to us, but after us. So I'm very excited about it and glad to be a part of it. And it's good to see you, Bishop Vanessa. It's been a little while, but
Yes, it's been a while.
I'm thrilled to be able to see you. God bless.
God bless you, Bishop. Thank you so much. And we have an incredible guest tonight in the person of Dr. Lomax. Dr. Lomax is here. She's the Associate Professor of Religious Studies at Michigan State University. And I'm excited. She has been with us in times past,
Yes.
and she has gifts. She always comes bearing gifts, Bishop Flunder. And
Yes.
I want to say to our listening audience before she says anything to you that we want to thank you, Dr. Lomax, for the ways in which you hold us up, like
Yes.
in community, like for real. Like you love us and
Mhm.
you call us in and you call us out. And I think that that's so important to have people, Black women,
Yes.
right, who love us, who love community, and who bring correction, like Bishop Flunder and so many others. But I want to thank you publicly for the ways in which I've seen you do that. Through social media, through your work, through your writing, and through your teaching. So we're grateful for you tonight, Dr. Lomax. Will you please greet our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you all for the invitation. It is really an honor and joy, and I don't just to be here with you all. You know, we have talked before, and Bishop Blunder was not here last time, and we met a few times on a personal level and a work level. But I don't know if you remember, Bishop Blunder, you know, I said to you years ago, you had come to a conference that I had led at Boston University, that you had really created sacred space. You know, I'm constantly trying to create sacred space, and you had created that for me, and it was just, I was in awe of the space that you created, and so I am just really excited to talk about this work that is near and dear to me, and that this is really my first, you know, public conversation, and I'm glad that it's with you all, and I'm really thankful for all of the folks who are here, and I'm ready to start the journey. So I hope that, you know, the folks are with me as well.
Excellent. Well, welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. What I also want to say to everybody is that Dr. Lomax has agreed to give away a book tonight.
Mhm.
And so, if you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers to enter, you're going to win a copy of the book. And also, if you want to purchase the book, she has given us a code that Pastor Sue is going to put in the chat and comment sections. You can get the book through Duke Press. I think you get 30% off of the book, and the code is there, and we'll make sure that you have that. We're going to be talking about very powerful. And let me just also say, before I say about the book, she has two books.
Mm-hmm.
But tonight we're going to talk about one, and next week we're going to talk about the other.
I
It is
like
this is powerful work. I am grateful to be included. The name of the book is Loving Black Boys, a
Mhm.
Black feminist Bible on racism and revolutionary mothering. I want to say it again because that's a full statement. It ought to make you pause and stop and think. Loving Black Boys, a Black feminist Bible on racism and revolutionary mothering. The reason why I said I wanted to stop, Bishop Flunder, Dr. Lomax, is because when I think about Black boys, I think about all the terror
Yeah.
that's happening even right now in this nation, and how young Black boys are being terrorized
Mm-hmm.
by what is going on in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Lomax, I like to start off by saying, why was it important for you to write this book from a Black feminist lens rather than a traditional framework of Black masculinity?
Mhm.
If it's okay to take my time with this, because it is my first time talking publicly about the book. I mean, I've written posts about it, but it's really, 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 really important. The question is important, and it's also important for me to like set this up, because I already know that there's a feeling, that folks get when we talk about Black feminism. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to just take a moment to just explain, right? So the first thing that I want to say is, I refer to loving Black boys as a Lordian, Baldwinian, sacred Black feminist uh, narrative. And so it merges scholarly analysis with personal and historical narratives, right? So in other words, basically the book is drawing from the works of Audre Lorde, James Baldwin, Bell Hooks, my hubby, my sons, Derek Bell, Frantz Fanon, W.B. Du Bois, Mark Anthony Neal, Carter G. Woodson, and on and on and on, right? And so the text draws from these thinkers, but it puts them in conversation with personal experiences, which I argue are political, right? But it also puts it in conversation with history and theory, right? So it's a distinct kind of storytelling, and so it's that. But also, I call it this critical love letter. And I don't want to lose that, because it is a critical love letter in the midst of all of the theory and history. It is a critical love letter to my sons. And so that's like at the center of the text. But it's ultimately this radical Black feminist testament, right? And it's from the only perspective that I can write from. So I'm really clear about that, right? So I am a Black woman who happens to be a Black mother, who happens to be a Black feminist. And so I say all of that to say, I cannot write from a framework of Black masculinity, traditional or otherwise. I don't have that lens, right? I can only write from my position as a Black feminist mother who has raised Black sons in deep loving. Now, this is key, in deep loving community with Black men across sexualities and genders, right? So I am sure in the book to clarify up front that I in no way speak for Black men. Boys, I cannot possibly know exactly what they have experienced and what that has felt like, but I can, however, take seriously the excuse me, the inner thoughts that they have shared through time via writing, via speeches, via music, via dialogues, and otherwise, right? And I can put that into conversation with history and theory and my experiences as a Black woman and mother. I do want to say that I have to say a word on Black feminism specifically, because it's imperative to clarify like what Black feminism is and what it has to do with Black men and boys. Because I know that I've had so much support for the book, but I know that somewhere out there, somebody's like, "What? Why would I don't need Black feminists to tell me anything, Black feminism to tell me anything about being a man or a boy." It is not about telling one how to be a man or a boy. It's not about that, right? So the first thing that I want to say is that Black feminism is a radical politics, methodology, and movement against race, class, sex, and sexual and other discrimination. That's what it is. I think sometimes when there's such a negative response to Black feminism, a lot of times it's because, well, there's a hatred for the feminine, and that's something that we got to talk about. But also, folks don't really know what it is, right? And so it's a radical politics, methodology, and movement against race, class, sex, sexual, and other forms of discrimination. The second thing that I want to say about Black feminism is that Black feminism is not the enemy. It is not the enemy. It is, as Bell Hooks says, Black feminism is for everybody. That's a book, like a basic kind of feminism 101. Feminism is for everybody, and Black feminism and feminism are not the same thing. But the next thing that I want to say is that Black feminism is really rooted in the sense of love for Black people, but all Black people, right? So not just some Black people. And I have to set the stage and just kind of take a little bit of time there, because I am fully aware that some hold still that Black feminism is anti-Black men, anti-Black mothers, anti-Black boys, anti-Black families, anti-Black communities, anti-Black church. And I understand that, right? I also understand that some believe that Black feminism, further erases and or disempowers Black men and boys. And I need to make it clear that that is emphatically not what this is. I'm clear that there are some Black feminists, there are some Black feminist ideologies that may do that kind of work. That is emphatically not who I am, and that's not the kind of work that I do and or that I am, doing. I am, to make it very, very clear, I am a Black woman in deep, loving community with Black men, right? So I write as a Black daughter. I write as a Black wife. I write as a Black mother, a Black sister, niece, and friend to many Black men. And so I come humbly to this text, understanding, that. And so I want to say that, I also come to the text understanding that Black men, on one hand, because this is very, very important to Black feminist politics, the last thing I'm going to say about this, and that is that Black men and boys have been both abandoned and endangered by society and politics in many ways, right? So as a Black feminist, I can get at that. Like, there is this abandonment and endangerment that we must discuss. But on the other hand, or simultaneously, the thing that I also hold within my hands is Black men and boys have been experienced as a danger within our communities. And so both books, but really this book on Black boys, it really tries to get at, that balance between being abandoned and endangered and being seen and experienced as a danger. And so it really tries to get at, that balance there. And it tries to work through, all of that, while at the same time nurturing my Black sons into their own freedom, which I argue requires a Black feminist, love ethic that is not only against racism and, anti-Blackness, but it's also against sexism, misogyny, heteropatriarchy, trans antagonism, and homophobia. Like that, for me, that is what love is, right? It is Black love. Loving my Black sons is really raising them up in this fullness of love. It's in this fullness of love that really demands on our collective freedom, not just freedom for Black men, not just freedom for Black women, not just freedom for queer folks, right? It is really rooted in this collective freedom, justice, equality, mutuality, and power. And so this book it's not the strategy, it's a strategy. It's an intervention, right? And it's really pushing for this broader angle for conceptualizing, hope. Our hope, struggles, and survival. And so it understands that Black feminism is imperfect, but it also, even with it being imperfect, I see it as this really, really useful tool to help us to see one another better, and to consider one another better, and to love one another better, and to protect and fight for one another better.
Bishop Flutter, before you go, I just have to say, I believe everything you're saying, Dr. Lomax. Do you hear me? When you talk about that deep love, but I said in the beginning, you love us. Like anybody that's read your work, they have to see the way you balance the two. So yes, we love, but we also gonna tell you where you went wrong at. And that is how you parent a child, right? That's how you do it. That's how you love, right? And so before we keep going, Bishop, I didn't greet nobody. I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't show love to our people. Bad girl, Vanessa. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, we love you. Thank you. Chuck Hunt, we see you. Lavinia Bean, we see you. Ben Banks, we see you. Nico, we see you. Minister Cindy Hudson, we see you. Pastor Diane, we see you. Reverend LaJuan, we see you. Nicole Renville, we see you. And yeah, please tell us where you're from. Pastor Karen, Boston, we see you. Minister Renee, UFC Columbia, Baltimore, we see you. Chuck Jones, Palm Springs, we see you. Tiffany Stark, how you doing? Tell me where you're from. Thank you so much. Paris, California is in the house. Yeah, we see you. Oh, Dr. Quincy James Reinhardt, will you please give our brother a hand? He just got his PhD. Atlanta, Georgia's in the house. Dr. E. Marcus Harper Short is here. DC, Maryland area. Thank you. Albert Reed, Colleen, Texas. Thank you to Tanya Lorraine, Atlanta, Georgia. Antoine Johnson, Decatur, Georgia. Marita Wilson, thank you so much. Marita, tell us where you're from. Marsha Lewis, Detroit. Thank you. Nicola, you from New York. Thank you. Thank you, family, for being on. Meredith is from Charlotte by way of Brooklyn. Hello. Thank you.
That's right.
YouTube is on here. John from St. Louis. all of y'all, do me a favor, give one big share. Let the people know that we are out here. Jeffrey Howard, Aiken, South Carolina, Wanda Fox, Lenoir, North Carolina, Dr. Eric Turner, Brooklyn is in the house, holding it down. I'm just amazed. April Wright, tell me where you from. Apostle Devlin out of Florida, Natasha Robinson, Professor, Doctor, congratulations on your graduation, out of Chicago. So, Dr. Lomax, we got questions for you, and Bishop Flunder is going to go on to the next.
All right.
Well, yes,
by the way.
So many things that came up for me while you were talking, but a couple things I wanted to ask you, because I have grandsons, and well, 3 of them, and they are 15. They are 18 and 22, and all we have a motherness, because we care for them and see to them, and so I understand where your heart is, and it's different levels of age and different levels of understanding and different levels of growth, and they have extraordinarily big feet. All of them have extraordinarily large, amazingly large feet. But there are a couple of things that came up for me. In terms of what would you say to people who are parenting and seeking to affirm young men around self-affirmation, positive self-affirmation? And I say that because you describe America as a burning house. What does it mean to raise Black boys inside of systems that are structurally hostile to their humanity, and be able to also, in the midst of all of that, help them to learn and to affirm self-positive affirmation in the midst of all of this?
Well, the thing I want to start by really sharing on a personal level is it was so hard, right? As I was writing, I would be writing, these words, and as folks read this book, I'm literally writing through tears. I don't want to tear up, but to really think about, your children, to teach them to love in a society that is literally trying to burn them alive. And you don't want to raise them to hate, and you don't want them to be not proud. That is one of the hardest jobs that we can do. So I typed through tears a lot of times, and I would joke on Facebook a lot of times I was writing, and I'd say that I'm gonna have to get me some, waterproof mascara, and I asked people to work on it, because I know how deep this work is for me. And so this is, it's an intellectual project, but this is really soul work. It is holy work. And so James Baldwin refers to America as a burning house. He refers to America as a burning house to note the precarity of Black people in a country that not only refuses to see them as fully human, but that is consistently at war with them and us, right? And so that said, readers, when folks are reading this book, they're going to note a persistent linguistic and otherwise emphasis on war throughout the book, right? Namely, because Black people, our survival, our thriving, and our creativity and innovation are steadily seen and treated, not just seen, but seen and treated as a threat to making America great. Right? So Black folks are literally out here surviving and creating while trying to avoid the normalization of Black genocide. So raising Black boys and children in general right? Children in general, but Black boys specifically, because that's what this book is about, within such a context, is a practice of what I refer to as Black living hope, right? And Black living hope is this insistence on our survival. And it's in the face of the impossible. It's the insistence on the impossible, right? In the face of genocidal forces. It's as Alexis Pauline Gumbs, I utilize her work a lot in this text. She asserts that, you know, it's survival is navigating life after enduring disaster. Like, that's what we're doing. We're navigating life after enduring disaster, right? It's remembering and honoring the ancestors who died and survived, right? Who were here long enough to ensure our survival. It's loving our children so deeply that we honor their humanity by refusing to negotiate with bondage. And so, you know, basically, you know, it's fighting counterterrorism, you know, every day while trying to create sanctuary. And so I really believe that Black people we are these sacred beings, not that we are inhuman, not that we are perfect, but we are truly sacred. We are truly sacred to love as deeply as we do and to create as magnificently as we do, despite the hatred and violence around us, right? So that work is truly divine. So raising a Black boy is inside of a burning house, right? To love and not to hate, but yet with a sense of radically inclusive consciousness is a righteous act. It's basically teaching history, King's beloved community, critical race theory, and Black feminist sanctuary, right, on the daily, which is what I did. And so, you know, we have to treat it as like regular, you know, conversation. We in the car going to the basketball game. They're getting dressed for the prom, or, you know, we're coming home from dinner. It was just regular conversation, you know, that we had at the table, like constantly pushing back against, you know, America's ideas, America's cruelties, and America's desire to normalize, you know, Black genocide. And so one of the things that I really focused on that really came to light today was really just really rooting my sons in history and our histories, like, you know, not just the beautiful parts, but all the parts. And so that they really have a very clear understanding of the power of Black people. And it came to fruition today because my family has this group, has a family chat. And my oldest son, I don't know that if he intended to do this, but he just began preaching to us about, you know, how this moment is such a critical moment for our creativity. And it's such a critical moment for it is not a moment for hopelessness. It is a moment for us to really realize our power. But he said that his generation, he's 25, he said his generation sees him as different or strange or an outsider because he's so deeply rooted in history, and he's concerned about gerrymandering. He understands the connections. He said that the problem is with the younger generations it is a problem with the older generations that we did not do our job. We did not do our job in teaching them history so that they understand this pride within themselves, but also so that they can understand the monster when they see it. And so the older generation did not do our job in passing on those lessons and teaching our kids who the monster is. And so they don't know how to then fight against the monster, but they also don't know the tools that they have to survive. You know, one of the things that I teach my students that, you know, to not be ashamed of slavery. Well, I mean, the white folks should be ashamed of slavery, but we should not be ashamed of slavery because our people survived. And the fact that we survived that is, you know, amazing. And so there's so much power, you know, in that.
Amen.
Yes, Lord.
If I had an usher, I think we would give our offering right now.
Listen, right away, immediately. Listen, family, we are listening to Dr. Tamura Lomax, Loving Black Boys and a Black Feminist Bible on Racism, Revolutionary Mothering. She has agreed to give away a copy of a book. Put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers to win. I'm going to need y'all to start having these, you know, conversations like Bible study, like for real on this book. It's very important what we're talking about tonight. I see other people have entered into the chat. Cecil Charles Prescott is with us from Portland, Oregon. Marita, thank you for telling us you're from San Francisco. A COR member and pastor at Chinese congregation. April, thank you. You're in Atlanta by way of Seattle. Evans Skincare, but I know that that's not your name, but thank you. Richmond, Virginia, thank you for being in the house. Cheryl Gainey, Northern California, that's what it is. Michael Lomax, Michael Lomax, that must be Honey Babe. Somebody.
It is.
Yes, it is. It's her husband. Look at that. Dr. Jamie Edie is on here. Philly is in the house. Cloudy Days. Christy Dotson, Michigan. Katrina Lynch is on. Katrina, tell us where you're from. Esther Sanderson is from Richmond, Virginia. Reverend Marilyn Pagan Banks is here. Presente from Chicago. Thank you very much. All right. Evan Skincare is Tasha Dickerson, Richmond, Virginia. Thank you for being on. We appreciate you. Huh?
That's my doctor. So I have to understand why I'm so stressed these days.
I love it. Cherie Scott is here out of Tennessee. Memphis is in the house. Thank you so much, Cherie, for being on, Reverend. Yeah, and so we are moving on. Hollow Rain. Thank you for being here. Seattle, Washington. Lene Nelson, thank you for being on. We appreciate you. Tanya D. Jackson is on. Wilmington, Newark, Delaware. Thank you for being on. Herbert S. Jones, Boston. Denise Benson is on. Thank you, Denise. You got to put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. I see y'all trying to win already. Latanya Davis, Greenville, South Carolina. Come on. I see you putting it in there. All right, Black Criminal Justice is on. Reverend Malik and Pastor Raquel, Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you. Susan, Soshana Bond. Thank you. Nashville, Tennessee. Marcus Johnson. Bless you, Marcus. Providence, Rhode Island. Listen, Deanna Morgan, Honolulu. Okay? Denise Benson in Charlotte. I'm just trying to tell you that the people are here to hear what you have to say. And like you say, you're not the only way, but you are one of the ways. And they want to hear what it is that you have to say. And I too want to hear what you have to say. My question to you is, how do Black mothers navigate teaching survival to Black boys without teaching fear as an identity? I'm going to say that a question again because it resonates. How do Black mothers navigate teaching survival to Black boys without teaching fear as identity?
It's hard. We don't have to teach it. The world teaches it, right? And so I honestly, I'm straight no chaser. My sons can tell you, like, I'm gonna tell you the truth, and I don't think that there is a way around the fear. We don't have to teach it, but I don't think there's a way around it. But what we can do is teach lessons on the power of personhood. What we can do is teach lessons on the power of Black identity, Black spiritualities, Black histories, cultures, communities, collectivities, resistances, kinships, creativities, and otherwise. Like, I really do feel like that's where our power lies. It lies in us understanding who we are. It lies in us understanding our powerful identity. It lies in us understanding our spiritual practices, and they're not just Christianity. I teach. I'm a scholar of religion, and so a text that I teach pretty much every semester is Albert Roberto's "A Slave Religion," and what our folks came over here with.
Yes, ma'am.
They survived. And so there's so much power in that. That's why there's so much, I feel like there's so much animosity, right, against it. There's so much work that's done to tell us how that's bad. There's so much work that's done in society to tell us how, that's illegal, it's outlawed, it's demonic, right? But these were their spiritual powers. And so I really do think that, no, we can't avoid like fear. Fear is going to happen, but what we can do is really teach, really be steadfast in the power of our personhood, our identity, our spiritualities, our histories, our culture, our communities, and our collectivities. And that's why this book is so important, because we can't even get to community if we don't know how to be with one another. If we are a danger to one another, we can't even get to our full power if we cannot get to a broader understanding of community. And so there is that. But the other piece is this is what my son was saying earlier, is that we cannot shy away from all the ways that legalized white supremacy, heteropatriarchy has its foot on all of our necks. And how it impacts all of us individually and collectively, and how that then impacts our relations. We cannot be dishonest about that. We also can't ignore it or depoliticize it, as we saw with the thing that happened, the roast or whatever, where we're depoliticizing.
Yes.
That's right.
We cannot do that. We
Right.
have to be honest about the force and permanence of racism and the work that it does, right? But we cannot end there. We cannot say, well, you know what? Derek Bell says that, racism is permanent. Like these white folks, they're gonna be racist. Yeah, I think that's true. They're gonna be racist, right? We see that. We see a history of that. And there really is a lack of understanding, I think, for them or around what racism is and how it functions. But that's not our problem. The racism is their problem. I mean, we experience it, but getting rid of it is really, that's their work. So we can't end there with the permanence of like racism. And so I think that our children are empowered through not only knowing our histories, but also having the language and models of resistance. They have to have the language and models of resistance. Like we are literally here because the ancestors fought and survived, not because they were oppressed. We are here because they fought and survived, right? And so for me, teaching this is a form of love. It doesn't take away fear, right? But it does add a sense of power where, that fear doesn't sting as much. So when I just think about my son this morning and, oh my God, he was on fire, telling us that he is a lion in the midst of a burning house. And so, regardless, like it's that irregardless. Regardless of what the folks are doing around us, we're gonna stand and we're gonna be like we've been here, we are here, and we're gonna be here.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's that balance, right? Honesty, but also like the sense of fearlessness.
Powerful. We are here and we're not going anywhere. Go ahead, Bishop.
This is something that sort of stays on my mind too when I watch young men in growing up and learning from their mistakes. And some of the young men, both in our churches and in folks that we serve, and then the young men that are part of my life that raised up from babies, they function differently around what happens when they are not feeling great. And when they perhaps did something, and it was mess. It was a mess. Because I know that there are times that things happen. And how to resolve and go forward and to learn from it so that it is a stepping stone and not a broken place in their lives, that they're not failing because of it. When you're talking to young men and to the parents of young men, how would you share with them about how best to enable our young men to learn from and in some ways be blessed by the errors that they've made in their lives?
So being a Black boy, as I really listened to my sons and I mean really listened, and not just listen to their words, but listen to what they did and how they carried themselves when they weren't so happy, how they dealt with depression at different points. It's and the things that they set out right. Like the music that they listened to, like I really had to be very in tune with what exactly they were saying to us. And so one of the places that this book goes that I did not intend for it to go is really into emotional health. Like I didn't intend for it to, that was not my plan, right? This book was intentionally like, it was based upon a project that I, began when they were born. Like, what if, if people can teach, sexism, what happens if I teach feminism? And then when Michael Brown passed away, it was like, wait, let me teach parenting against racism and the patriarchy. And so that was what the book was, right? But what I realized is that surviving America, was a lot more than that for Black boys. And so what what I had to do is I had to really look at what are the things that Black boys and men are surviving, right? Like what are the things that they're surviving, right? Obviously, there's this complete sense of dehumanization. There's this lack of full access to the patriarchy. There is a sense of racial rage. There's policing. There's mass incarceration, joblessness. Like there's all of these things, right? A big one for my oldest son is the preschool to prison pipelining that I talk about in the book that he experiences, and it impacts him to this day, right? There's this normalization of racial violence, right? We know that. But because of that, there's also this other part. And it's what my husband calls, he refers to, I'm also, as I'm talking to James Baldwin and W.B. Du Bois, I'm also talking to my husband and sons. And so one day I'm talking to my husband about, manhood. And he refers to it as the weight that men carry surviving all of the above. While though consistently being told to man up.
Man up.
And everywhere you're being told you're not a man, but to man up, right? And so the book takes this unexpected turn into mental health, thanks to this talk with my husband, but also with my youngest son, about the limitations of Black masculinity in a world that insists on this box, right, around gender, around manhood, that says manhood is just this, is to protect and provide, right? That's it, right? And so I asked my son, we're at the kitchen table, and this is like our safe space, and I say, what is, Black masculinity to you? Like, how are you, experiencing this world? And he really like goes in on how the world basically attempts to limit what masculinity is, right? But while stifling Black male identity, particularly, right? But it's not just that. He doesn't end there. He's like, but simultaneously, Black men, though, have created their own prisons around what Black manhood is and isn't. And so, there is a history of, both metaphorical and, literal castration, lynching, torture, emasculation, right? And social and familial and political ostracization, right? Which has led to an over-policing of this notion of real versus invalid masculinity. And so what my son says is that all of this basically denies like the natural evolution and emergence of complex identities. And so this makes it very hard for these young Black men and boys to survive and to figure out what is right and wrong, how to be, how not to be, because they're trying to fit into this box that society stacks away anyways, right? And so it's this complex being, and they don't have a right to live into the fullness of who they are. And so I kind of get into this. I'll say I talk about it throughout the book, but I especially talk about it in one of my favorite, well, they're all my favorite chapters, but there's this chapter 4. It's titled Bloodletting in the Mouth of a Dragon, Black Patriarchy Save Us. And in that chapter, I center the chapter on 2 stories about my son. In one story, he is being rewarded my youngest son, he's being rewarded in middle school for knowing the definition of patriarchy. So I said we've been having conversations forever, right? So he's the one kid who knows what patriarchy is. And it's amazing that they're even talking about patriarchy in middle school. And I talk about why that is and the kind of school it is. But the other story, he is explaining in a video why patriarchy is bad. And what he argues is that it harms the other half of the world. And it is so sweet and innocent because my baby is like 10. And he's saying he don't want patriarchy because it harms the other half of the world. It's not good for his mommy, he says, right? And so in response to that video, a commenter, which I had to, block the comments, but a commenter says, the commenter appears to be a Black male. He chastises me for raising my son not to be a real man, right? Because to him, empathy for or mutuality with the other half of the world is not the business of real men, right? And so he comments that I am, raising my son to be confused and or soft. And so it is this that causes so much confusion for our young folks, because they're trying to live into the fullness of their humanity, but you have society, you have white supremacy, smacking them down in one way, but then you have this kind of internal fight, right, to prove that we are real men. also smacking them down in another way. And it's very hard for them to figure out where to be. And so this, I argue, it creates this like refusal of tenderness, right? Because this fear of not presenting real manhood. And so to get at that, I lean heavily on the work of my dear friend and brother, Dr. Michael Lindsay, but also my dear friend and brother, Darnell Moore, and many others, right? Because what they argue is that not getting at this in a more healthy and more emancipatory way is leading our young men to commit suicide. Like, it is leading to very dangerous places. It is leading to forms of violence. It is leading to forms of violence intercommunally, like against us, but it's also leading to forms of violence against themselves, right? And so, and this leads to this emotional crisis. And I would argue, this last thing I would say about that is that James Baldwin basically says in this conversation between him and Audre Lorde from 1984, I believe, and I use it throughout both books. It's very, very important. I use this conversation between Baldwin and Lorde to model the conversation I'm trying to have with the world as a Black woman. And Baldwin says it leads to this kind of schizophrenia, because we're asking something of Black men and boys while we're saying you must be that, but you can't be that. You must be that, but you can't be that. And so they can't figure out. And then in that, we're limiting what that is. And so it makes it very difficult for them to, navigate that.
Lord have mercy. Listen, Bishop Flenda, Dr. Lomax is here really, really, really like teaching like a syllabus. This should be a class. Is this a class? Because it should be.
Not a class, but my husband has asked me, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
He has asked me to like consider like a workbook, and I am strongly considering something like this, to help, because it is so much. And one of the things that I said when the book first came out, because the book is thick, and Duke doesn't do big print. It is small print. It is a lot of pages. And I told people to consider, it is so meaty and it is so weighty. It is not something that you can speed through. You cannot. And so I said to the people, think of each chapter as a book within itself. Yes, they're related, but read it slowly and consider each chapter as a book within itself. And then I could think about maybe some sort of work, like to create questions or something, because it is a lot. And it's a lot to get through. It can absolutely be a Bible study, because it in a variety of things, because it could be a course, because it's so much here in terms of really understanding Black masculinity, but not Black masculinity on an island. It is Black masculinity in a community. And I feel like that's a gaze that only a Black feminist can give.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I know people have questions. If you have a question for Dr. Lomax on this subject, you're going to put the word question and then ask your question and we'll get to it. But we do have two more questions for you, right? One of them, first of all, you mentioned Darnell Moore. Shout out to Darnell Moore. We love him. How has the church contributed to harm around Black masculinity, patriarchy, and emotional suppression? To Bishop and as a presiding bishop, we have seen it, but I want to hear from your mouth what you have seen and in your experience, what the church has contributed with regards to harm.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is I'm a PK.
Yeah.
I am a pastor's wife. So, what they call a first lady. Black feminist first lady. So I am that. So I'm dead center in the Black church. So I want to begin there. And then the other place that I want to begin is really complimenting the Black church first. And then I'm gonna get into the critique, because I really get so frustrated when I see like folks just hammering the Black church, and because it's easy. Right. And it's easy to get an applause, but the Black church, be out here doing some, we don't get the civil rights movement and what we saw during the time of abolition, like the churches that were sprouting out. Like, this is where, the radical action was happening, amongst other places. But that institution right there is very significant. So the first thing the next thing I want to say is that I want to situate the Black church as this place of being one of the best places in terms of doing the best job at humanizing Black folks. It's not perfect at it, but it does one of the best jobs at humanizing our folks. It is not. It has some mistakes, but it is one of the best places in terms of, and sometimes it's one of the only places where we can go feel human and whole, even without all of our critiques. I want to say that. The next thing that I have to say is that it largely, though, does a terrible job around sex, gender, sexuality, and emotional care. Like it just, it does not do a good job. And I get it, right? It's in an effort to basically undo that history I was talking about, the history of emasculation and castration and lynching. Like, we have to talk about how Black men were socially ostracized from the communities, even the slave communities, right? And even socially ostracized from their own bodies because of this trauma that they were experiencing. Folks don't like to talk about it, but we have to talk about it because that's what I argue pushes the Black church to really lean, and Black families to lean really heavily, and this includes Black women, to lean really heavily into what I refer to as aspirational Black patriarchy, aspirational Black heteropatriarchy, right? Which aspirational Black heteropatriarchy is basically uses sexist, sexual, capitalist, and physical domination to access power, but to access it intracommunally. Right? So you can't access it outside of the community, but it uses it intracommunally. And I think that what I want to argue is that there's a way to name and resist these terrible histories, right?
Yes.
Without recreating and marginalizing structures of dominance, right? You don't need to dominate or disenfranchise or eliminate, women, queer folks, trans folks, and otherwise, right? Or throw us under the bus in order to affirm your humanity. So we have to figure that out, right? But the Black church, specifically needs to widen its frame on personhood, identity, and how people are actually loving and relating to one another, how we make community. Black churches are still, I hate to say it, but they're still out here, talking about male heads and how women can't lead men. That's part of why we are here where we are, because folks say, I'd rather have a white supremacist because women can't lead men. Right. So we're still preaching that. The church is still preaching that. They're still preaching the trite Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Right. We're still hearing liturgy on Sunday morning, and liturgy and otherwise, where God is solely presented as male. Right. Yes. The church is still ignoring these different forms of love and unions and families. Right. It's still emphasizing Black male power while, completely ignoring Black male weaknesses. Right. And the challenges that they face. Right. And so in doing this, the Black church is not doing the work that it thinks it's doing. And so it is really creating, really more harm. But more than that, it's sending the younger generations running in the opposite direction because they have a fuller understanding of what humanity can be and how we can be in community. They don't have some of our, hangups. And so the Black church sadly hasn't, figured that out. The Black church is still in a space of, over policing real versus invalid forms of masculinities, just as much as the broader culture does, right? And we see let's look at the broader culture for a second. There is literally an unleashing, which I think is spiritual and political, right? Yeah. There is an unleashing of the most vicious, Christocentric, masculinist hatred, right? That is leading to all kinds of chaos and violence in the world. Like, it literally, I imagine when I have my talks with God, I imagine God saying, you know what? You want this? Here you go, right? I'm gonna let y'all have this just for a second. And so, we have this unleashing of white supremacist heteropatriarchy in the most vicious and violent way. And what I say in this book is that the Black church nor Black people we need not mirror any part of that.
Thank you.
We need not mirror any aspect of what they are doing. It is demonic. We cannot mirror. That is not something that we need to model, right? And so in another talk that I did previously a couple of years ago, what I push for, and I push for it in this book, is for us to really rethink these categories that white folks have given to us in terms of gender, right? Not just relating, but in terms of gender, right? In terms of what a woman is, what a man is, right? Because first of all, that's very binary, but secondly, it's very harmful to us because these are not even our understandings, not historically, right? In terms of who we can be. And so the Black church reproduces those binaries, and they're very hurtful, to us. They're not leading to our liberation.
Truth. Glory to God.
Not leading to our liberation.
Not at all.
Yeah, and right now we are really in chains.
Yes.
But we have the ability to free ourselves.
We can do it.
We have
We
the
must-
ability to free ourselves.
Yeah.
And you can free yourself through this book. That's where I'm going.
Yes. That's
That's
good.
the road I'm going down, right?
That's
You
good.
can free yourself with this book. You have an opportunity to purchase this book from Duke Press. The code is there. You see it. Pastor Sue put it there. It's 30% off. You got to put the code in. You have an opportunity to win this book. Now, we've already discussed that this could be a Bible study or a group meeting or something, where people come together and actually read this book together and talk it through, right? It's an academic book, but it's also a book that can be used in community, can be used in church. And my desire is to see people say and hear people say that, hey, this is our next Bible study. This is we're doing a series, 3 months or whatever the time frame is, that this is what we're going to talk about. We really need to do this for ourselves.
Yes.
Because the real deal is that nobody is coming to save us but us.
It's true.
Nobody is coming to save us but us. We can save ourselves. We can do it in community with each other, loving on one another. And okay, I'm stop preaching.
It's
right.
true. It's true.
Here's my sixth question, and then I'm gonna get to the audience because I see some questions here. What role does revolutionary mothering play in disrupting toxic masculinity? Because it must be disrupted.
It must absolutely be disrupted. So So I'd like with the first question, I'm gonna need to take my time with this, and this is not exhaustive, but I want to get to a couple of things. The first thing that I want to say is that Black feminist mothering, aka revolutionary mothering, it enlarges the frame for seeing, supporting, protecting, and loving Black men and boys across genders and sexualities. Like that's the first thing, meaning that it holds our collective endangerments in balance, right? So specifically, loving Black boys unequivocally argues that Black boy survival in America is specific and endangered, but yet also a part of the collective story, right? Of Black life and endangerment in America. So enlarging the frame insists on seeing Black boys and men, right, and what they're experiencing and the particularity of it, but without erasing others. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The second thing that I want to say is that Black feminist mothering, aka revolutionary mothering, it sits with and takes seriously where the pain lies.
Yes.
In an interview, I teach a class at my university on Tupac, on the Tupac Shakur, the rapper and revolutionary Tupac Shakur, and I teach it as him, as a revolutionary, not so much as a rapper. And so I don't really look at his music, although my students have asked me to do that. I instead look at his interviews, which are very telling. And I actually went to high school with him, so I knew him very well. And that's where I see the person that I know, is through the interviews. And there is a particular interview where the late rapper and revolutionary Tupac Shakur, he says, America would better understand and empathize with Black men and boys if America saw them like Vietnam vets.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Soldiers thrust into violent, unpredictable, and stressful guerrilla warfare abroad and at home. And that guerrilla warfare led to, he talks about how that led to strain, it led to casualties, it led to PTSD, hostilities, right? Stigmatization, criminalization, right? Ultimately, it led to American abandonment. And so when he said that, like that just struck me because I thought, wow, like what, because remember when they came home, we also didn't have nothing, there was nothing for them. There was nothing to help them through what they had, the guerrilla warfare that they had experienced. And in fact, there was more guerrilla warfare at home. And so what Tupac Shakur is saying, he's saying we would better engage with and understand and have empathy towards Black men and boys, right? If we understood where it hurts. And as a mother, it is very important, to say, baby, where does it hurt? And so revolutionary mothering takes very seriously where it hurts because that's my baby and I want to know where it hurts, right? So I can try to fix it, put some salve on it or something, right? But also as a Black feminist, what I understand is that part of the toxicity comes from emotional neglect around where it hurts, right? It comes from state violence. It comes from social, political, communal, and economic and otherwise abandonment, right? So we cannot skip over that. We cannot skip over all the ways that Black men and boys have been abandoned and how that has hurt them.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so revolutionary mothering like really gets at that. And I have a few other things, but I do want to say that there's a chapter 6, I believe, is titled Protect Black Men. And Protect Black Men for Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Michael Singleton, and all black boys. It really gets into this. And just really quickly, it looks at not only state violence and police violence, but intercommunal violence, because I don't know if you all remember Michael Singleton, but he's the boy who went to protest on behalf of Freddie Gray, and he faces not only state violence, right, and police violence, but he faces the violence from his mother because she beats him out of fear. And so all of these ways Black men and boys are not protected, like we have to ask them and really sit with, baby, where does the pain lie?
Yeah.
We need to figure that out. So revolutionary mothering asks that. The other thing is that Black feminist mothering, or AKA revolutionary mothering, it understands that aspirational Black patriarchy cannot be and has never been our healer, y'all. It has never been for our collective freedom. It has only been for our oppression and division. That's it. It cannot, and it has not ever healed Black men and boys where it hurts. Never. What it does is it induces rage, though. It induces violence, strain, hostility, and broken kinships, right? Which are all unacceptable. And so, like, that is not the answer. The other thing that I would say, the fourth thing that I would say about Black feminist mothering, AKA revolutionary mothering, is that it insists on sanctuary. And I've talked about sanctuary throughout tonight. I've said it a few times, but I want to kind of explain it. I began talking about this concept in California with some work that I did with Pastor Mike out in California, and Pastor Michael McBride. And that was my first time talking about introducing this concept of sanctuary. And Black feminist mothering, both books, what ties them together is not only the notion of collective endangerment, but this notion of sanctuary that I'm trying to build. And sanctuary is a world, but it's also communities where we grow. It's where we see and value one another's as ends rather than means. Two ends is where we lay our oppressions bare, is where we critically self-reflect on the ways that we support, hurt, and heal one another, is where we dream new dreams. But it's also where, and thinking about my sons, is where we remove masks, right, in terms of who we're supposed to be, right, or these boxes, right? And it's where we really interrogate and rethink these categories of gender, but it's also where we rethink and interrogate, like, who belongs in safe community with us. I don't think we, like, really engage that. We just kind of let everybody in, and we can't do that. And so, sanctuary, it does that kind of work, but it also, in sanctuary, mutuality and accountability are non-negotiable, period. But not only that, in sanctuary, sanctuary is oppositional. It is unapologetically oppositional towards racism, but also heteropatriarchy, misogynoir, anti-Blackness, individualism, transphobia, and on and on and on. Like, it does not, it holds no space for that, if we want to build sanctuary, because I do believe once we get in sanctuary, that's where our power lies, right? And so Black feminist mothering is really, really pushing for that. It's pushing for these communities where truly all Black lives really do matter. Not just some Black lives, but really all Black lives actually do matter. And so sanctuary is really pushing forth this radical sense of ethics, this radical ethics of care, communion, and love. And then finally, two more things I want to say about, and again, this is not exhaustive, but these last two things that they are very important. Black feminist mothering, AKA revolutionary mothering, it embraces the fact that we have a range of identities, right? Connections and expressions, which makes us beautifully human. And I said that a few times tonight, but it's very important to really, really drive that home, right? It refuses the narratives that, boys don't cry, or that real men, man up, or that real manhood is limited to protecting and providing. Protecting and providing is important, but if we're collectively in sanctuary and we're all working towards the good of our own people, then we're all protecting and providing, right? We don't need Black men and boys to not show emotion because they got to be strong, right? Or because, and we don't need white folks' categories and how they understand. They can't cry because we're afraid of white folks' categories of gender, saying that they're not real men. We don't need all of that, right? And so this revolutionary mothering, it really calls on Black men to really work through these categories, right? And to release fears around the feminine, and release fears around emasculate, because it comes from emasculation, right? And castration, and release fears around queerness. And that's not to say that all Black men are queer, because that's not the case. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying release fears around it, so that you can be in community with other people, right? And so, but not only that, you can also be in community with yourself. You can, if you love yourself better, you can love other Black men better. And if Black men are loving themselves and other Black men better, then they're gonna love us better. But as long as they have to, every time they look in it, they can't even look at the mirror without saying pause or something, because they can't even look at themselves because they're afraid of, looking back at their reflection, because that might be gay. They cannot love us because they cannot even love themselves. And so revolutionary mothering gets at that. And then the final thing that I want to say about tonight, that I want to say about Black feminist mothering, aka revolutionary mothering, it is an outright rejection of predation as a fixed way of being. And so I talk about predatory behaviors like throughout this book. And I want to say that my notion of predation is my use of it in both freeing Black girls and loving Black boys. It's inspired by a dear friend of mine, Christy Dotson, and her deployment of Toni Morrison's her essay Home, and her own forthcoming work. And in Toni Morrison's essay Home, Morrison imagines home as a place where, now this is not home yet, it's she's imagining home, right? So it's this place where she says that the master's voice, assumptions, and rules of dominance are refused, right? It's a place where the doorway never needs to be closed. It's the concrete thrill, y'all, of borderlessness and safety, right? Rather than fear, right? And so life is so safe in this notion of home that Morrison talks about, that a sleepless woman can rise in the middle of the night from her bed and take a walk without fear. Why? Because nothing and no one considers her prey, right? Now, I'm going to say we are miles away from her notion, Morrison's notion of home, right? But it's a goal. It's a way of thinking of ourselves and others in a world as interrelated co-inhabitants rather than predators. And to me, pushing towards a world where you do not live in or create fear is vital to disrupting toxic ways of being, right? And so though Morrison's home, yes, it centers a woman, right? And I think that's intentional for her. She's centering a woman walking in the middle of the night, but this is also an inclusive vision. Why? Because if a woman can move freely at all times of day and not be considered prey, then what does that mean for Black men and boys?
That's good.
They're also going to be free to move if we can move, right? And so to me, having this, pushing forth the society that we may never experience ourselves, in the same way our ancestors pushed forth to a society that they never experienced themselves, right? Pushing forward towards this society that we're probably not going to experience, right? This is an indispensable step.
Yeah.
Disrupting toxicity. It's pushing forth towards a society where people are not treated like prey.
That's it.
Yeah.
Bishop Linda, she is leading me to, and I see the questions. I want to make sure I get to it, but really quickly about our conference that's coming up.
Yes.
And the theme of it is Ubuntu. But one of the words in it is regenerate. And I feel like this whole thing is about regeneration. Part of regeneration is how we reimagine a better world. And what you have laid down right here is reimagining. You are seeing through your third eye about what it's supposed to be and what it should look like. You have named accountability. You have named so many things as it relates to regeneration, right? And I know that your book is probably talks a little bit about repair and all these things, but regeneration, us reimagining, and part of our problem our problem, and I'm talking about Black folks in our community, because that's what we're talking about tonight, is
Mhm.
that we are not reimagining. We have allowed our imagination to get really low because we're losing hope,
That's right.
right? But
Yep.
you are bringing reimagination, and I see all kinds of things
Mhm.
that can happen when we love deeply and when we are in communities. I just needed to say
Oh,
that.
it's,
Thank you so much.
I
Mhm.
agree. 100%, by the way.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So we have three questions here, and I will try to get to them, right? First question is coming from Minister Renee Weaver. How can Black mothers bridge the gap between feminine energy and male masculinity to hold authentic conversations with our Black sons on finding themselves in their own voices in a world trying to silence them?
Hmm. Well, I think the first thing is we have to stop. Thank you for the question. And we have to stop with the binaries. Like, we have to stop listening to social media. I think social media is really good for a lot of things, but I think it has harmed us in so many ways because it's actually telling us who we are. It's telling us, I'm supposed to have feminine energy all the time. I'm like, what is that? What is that? Where do we get this language from? Right. And then men, they have the masculine energy. We're like, what exactly is the masculine energy? Because truth be told, if we're going to use those binaries, I'm both of those things all the time. Like and so I don't even like to use them, masculine. And no, I'm just me. Like, I mean, so I have a chapter in, we'll probably talk about it next week. We'll talk about the Proverbs lady. I'm like, I'm a fighter, like I'm a
Yes.
fighter. And so I present all of the energies, and my sons can tell you, I present all the energies that they needed for them to survive. I was never just, oh, I'm in my feminine energy. I'm too soft to handle it. Let me send my husband low. If he wasn't, whether he was there or not, I'm going up to the school. Like, so I think that it's really, really important that we do away with these notions of feminine energy, masculine
Mhm.
energy. Like, I think that that's like the first thing, and we're just human beings, right? Because we're kind of, it's like the social media is creating a script for us, and we're just living into it.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. But I think what I hear her really asking is, how do I hear it? And that's where you get back to, baby, where does it hurt?
Yeah.
Because that gets at what is the issue? Where does it hurt? And it is wherever it's hurting, and however you want to express it, whether it be pain, whether it be through pain, whether it be through crying, whether it be through cussing in our household.
Mhm.
It's however you need to express it. I need you to get out how it hurts or how I have hurt you, so that we can, engage that. I think a lot of times you see these tensions between parents, right? And we think that it's just based upon genders, and it's not necessarily based upon genders. It's based upon the fact that we're not hearing our children. We're not listening. And there have been many times where I didn't hear my children. So I want to create, this image of me always hearing. And there are many, many times where I have not been heard. And so I know what, that's like, but I think we have to get away from the categories of the energies, right? And look at, is it positive or negative energy? Like, is it
Mhm.
useful or is it harmful energy? Like, maybe look at that, but not so much the gendered energies. But we have to really figure out, like, what is it that our children, are saying to us? What are the things that, are hurting them? And we have to begin early, though, y'all, with
Mhm.
our children, in terms of disrupting and undoing these categories, so that they're not, we can't fight against all the ways they're going to learn about gender through sports and school and all of that, but we can resist. We can give them an alternative, but that has to start early, and it has to be regular conversations where we're really deconstructing this notion that you have a masculine energy and I can't tell you anything because I'm your mom and I'm a woman and all of that, because it is really harming us so bad.
I agree. I
Love that.
absolutely agree.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Uh, Chuck Jones has a question. Where does one Black church begin? We are deeply steeped in old habits and customs. How does one Black church create the new biblical teachings inferred by God?
Mm.
Well, I say, start with a Bible study, start with a reading list, start with trying to, it's hard. I'm going to say this. I've seen where people have founded new churches, and I think that's easier because you can begin with the theologies and ideologies that you want that church to have. It's very hard to come into older churches and say, hey, we're no longer saying we want to be washed as white as snow. We're no longer saying that God is just he, him, and whatever. We're no longer doing that. It's very hard to do that. But I do think through Bible studies, through reading, through opening the eyes of the people, right, to the congregation, in love though, right? So not like I'm coming, y'all have been doing it the wrong way and I'm coming to teach you. It is really a sense of love, right? And so coming at them with a sense of love and saying, hey, maybe we go on this journey and let's broaden the frame. Something that I say a lot in the book, and I've said a lot today. We really need to broaden the frame, and in terms of rethinking how we're engaging with one another and creating community, but also how we're reading the text. Because it's so many texts. My husband and I were just talking the other day. It's so many texts that are so terrible, in the Bible that we just skip over, like it's just normative, like literally.
Just for a second, I just wanted to hear myself say that out of somebody else's mouth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen your post, and I agree with it. My husband and I were actually talking about it the other day with this notion of this third testament, because I remember we were in seminary. We were in seminary together, and there was a text called, I think it was like the text of terror. And it looked at all of the texts of terror in the Bible. I mean, we just look at Jezebel and what happens to her. This power, because she is powerful, right? Jezebel is not sexual. She is not like, she's not being sexual. She is powerful though. She is the throne. She don't even stand behind the throne. She is the throne, and her husband yields it to her, right?
Yes.
And so, in the words of Dr. Will Gaffney, and so, but she is brutalized, for that. And so we have to begin rethinking. And Gaffney argues that there's no other text in the Bible that gives this depiction of not only being trampled, but broken, eaten. Crap. I mean, it is absolutely like it is. You want to talk about misogyny, right? And that informs, how we, understand how we relate to women, even in the churches and beyond. And so I think a place to start is obviously with reading and broadening and rereading texts and rethinking our liturgies and all of that. But it's also like, really trying to find ways like this work where you could bring theological studies to the church, right? Really smart theological studies where you can engage, that you take time, even if it's a whole year that you take to read this one story, that you really have a different understanding, like of all the different nuances in the Bible, but all of many of the harms that are not useful to us. We know how to ignore slaves obey your master, like we ignore that. So it's some other stuff in there that we really need to like parse through, and also probably, ignore. And that doesn't mean ignoring the truth of the text. There's a truth in the text, right? One of which, Jesus said he came to, liberate the oppressed. If we could just focus on that and love thy neighbor, we're going to get very far.
Yes.
And this is the last question, because I know y'all love her. I can tell right now she gonna be back next week talking about freeing Black girls. But right now we're gonna deal with this last question. Says question: I heard you speak beautifully on the patriarchy. I heard you speak beautifully on the patriarchy, white supremacy, emasculation that comes from society towards us Black men. I also just heard you bring up even the lynching and emasculation coming from even the slave community. My question is, what research have you found on the patriarchy, white supremacy, lynching, emasculating that comes right from our own communities, families, and those that love us? Because it's something so embedded in them that they don't see it. How can we begin to fix this?
So I don't think that we are lynching one another. So I'm going to say that I'm not seeing that in my research. I am seeing that we do see emasculation, but even that, I think that's something that we need to spend so much time on, because like emasculating meaning what? Like emasculating men meaning that they can't participate in the patriarchy. Like what are we saying about emasculation, right? And I think that manhood has to be detached from the penis. And so like when we talk about emasculation, typically we're talking about access to the patriarchy, or access to patronymics, or access to whatever we think is supposed to happen with a penis, and how that's supposed to create domination over others. And so I think that there's a whole lot of work around emasculation that Black men need to do, right? Because one of the things that I always say is that when we release these categories that white supremacy has given to us in terms of what gender is, we don't need. I'm a woman because I say I'm a woman.
Yes.
My husband is a man because he say he is a man.
I hear you.
People are who they are because it's not because of their relationship too, right? And so that's what happens when we begin to release those categories. But I feel like as we emulate in a lot of ways, not all of us, but in a lot of ways, because it's deeply embedded in us, on white supremacy. So we're not out here, like lynching folks, but we are, there is this internalization
Yes.
of white supremacy. And we see it especially, and this is what my older son was saying earlier today, we see it especially, in our young folks, internal. That's why they can't even see the monster.
That's right.
They don't even understand that gerrymandering is bad, right? Or they don't even understand that they're walking around in MAGA hats, not even knowing that it's taking away all their rights because they cannot recognize the monster. And so I think that, but instead, who they think the monster is? Who white supremacy has said the monster is. And who white supremacy has said the monster is Black folks, Black men in particular. And they don't even see that they're not making the connection. And so that's what I see in my research in terms of the internalization of whiteness. And so, what I argue is that whiteness has really done a doozy on us.
It's
and
true.
We really have to really get in community with one another. I mean, in deep, loving and honest community, and like root it out. And not only root it out, but we have to really be honest about the damage that is done to us. In my first book, Jezebel Unhinged, I have this whole section where I talk about it matters what they did to us. It matters how they broke up our families. It matters how they, broke up our kinships. It matters how they tried to crap on our culture and our spiritualities. It matters that they raped our children and our mothers and our grandmothers and our grandfathers and our grandchildren and our grandsons in front of us. It matters that that was a form of torture. It matters that we had to sit through that. It matters that the slave master would go into the slave house and take the wife and tell the slave man to go outside and sit on the porch as he had his way with his wife. Like, all these things matter, and they have created a sense of brokenness in our communities. And so we really have to get with, I'm not saying that we are broken, but it's created a sense of brokenness in us. And so we really have to get at, we have to root out white supremacy, but we have to get at the ways that we have internalized it and how it has tried to break us down and how it has harmed us. And we have to unapologetically resist it and cast it out.
You're going to make me run around and do a Pentecostal fit.
Listen, she just said resist and cast out. You better come on now. Come on with it.
Gotta cast it out.
I believe God allowed us to live for this time. And not to say that people that have not lived are not important to God, but there are a group of people right now who are hearing what it is that you are saying, and many other sayings in and around us, because we've been chosen for such a time as this. You have really blessed me tonight, sister. I just want you to hear me say that. Okay.
Thank
you. All
you.
right. You have really blessed me tonight.
So much. Wow.
Indeed, indeed. So what I would like is for you to get some last thoughts, the both of you, that you want to say. I'm going to go to read some advertisement, and then we will come back and hear from you and give away a book tonight. And so you are doing hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers, family, so you can win the book. And you are also trying to purchase the book, and that information can be found in your comment section. You can get the book from Duke Press. There is a code, and there is 30% off. All right. Thank you so much.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
So we want to appreciate you for supporting our broadcasts on a weekly basis. We ask that you send a donation to PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFAMJustice. Let me say that again, www.paypal.me/TFAMJustice, in order to give. Thank you all so very, very much. I appreciate you very much. And I was talking about this earlier. Bishop Flunder is inviting you and the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries to our leadership conference. It's going
Yes.
to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. We will have it at the Sonesta Hotel in Charlotte. Our theme this year is practicing Ubuntu, resist, repair, regenerate. For more information, you can go to www.tfmconference.org to find it. We will be in Charlotte from the 22nd to the 25th of July. Please come and be with us. You do not have to be a leader in TFAM. You could be a leader anywhere to be a part of our conference. We invite you to come and be with us. God bless you. Next week, we will be back with Dr. Tamura Lomax. Yes, we will, with her book, Freeing Black Girls. You want to be here. You want to tell all your friends and everybody to show up to be a part of this conversation. And if you missed this conversation, I want you to go back and share the video and tell folks what they missed. And here we are. And
Hallelujah.
so, Bishop Flunder, Dr. Lomax, will you all just give us some last words that you want the listening audience to hear on tonight?
You go right ahead, Doctor.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being the first place for me to talk about loving Black boys with a radical, revolutionary, and feminist lens. That has been a blessing to me to kind of to launch here. So I really appreciate that. But I want to point to some words from that I use in the book from Toni Morrison. She writes, I think it's a Nation. I can't remember what magazine. I think it's a Nation, and it's she writes this. She writes that like in 2004, I believe it is, after Bush became president. She was really mourning. It was such a dark time for her, and she said that a friend calls her and said, "Well, what's going on?" And she's like, "I just can't go forth. Like I'm feeling, despair." And her friend says to her, "No, no, no, no. This is precisely the time when artists go to work." And so this is no time for despair. It is no time for self-pity. It is no time for silence. There's no room for fear. And so what I leave with folks is that this is precisely our time to do the work that God is calling us to do, the revolutionary work that God is calling us to do.
Yes and amen. Bishop Flunder.
Yes, it's just so much. I'm just full now. I'm all full all up in my eyeballs and everything. But I do think that it is important for me to say that this is our time. And the call is really on our lives, not just to be angry. Just to be angry is not enough. Just to be, pissed off and being able to say what the evil is that is in the atmosphere, that's not enough. What we're going to have to do is hear what it is that the divine is speaking to us to do in this time. And we now, in this generation, in this time, have the ability, we have the education, we have the access. We only now have to really embrace how great we are. Mm-hmm. How great we are. I'm not telling you not to get mad, but don't let mad make you think that you've done something.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You have to do more than mad. We have got to be able to embrace what our God, our Creator, has given us deep down, as my grandmother used to say, in the city of my soul. Mm-hmm. What I have to be able to do then is use what it is that God has blessed us to have and do something to change the despot reality that is in our time. We have been called for such a time as this. Thank you so very much, Dr. Lomax. Hallelujah. And you can tell Brother Lomax that I said hello. And we to. Okay.
Amen. So someone, Dr. Jamie Edie, said that we're going to give away 2 books tonight because she's going to donate a book as well. All right. So 2 books, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Paula Owens Parker, God bless you. You are the winner of one of the books. Would you be so kind as to put your name and your address inside the Beyond the Gatekeepers inbox? And we will make sure that that information goes to where it needs to go so that you can get the book. Thank you so much and congratulations to you. We've got one more book to give away.
All right.
And Minister Renee Weaver. God bless you, Minister Weaver. You have won the book. And please go into our Beyond the Gatekeepers inbox, put your full name and address in it. We will make sure that you get it. Thank you all so much for watching Beyond the Gatekeepers, for sharing, for being in community, and for learning with us. This is a place of belonging. This is a place of teaching. And I am so grateful for Dr. Lomax. So grateful for her. Yes. Glad that we are the place where she is the first place that she gets to talk about this book. It means a lot to us. And we are excited for next week. We're excited for next week. And we want you all to tell everybody, if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, to come back next week and hear Dr. Lomax talking about freeing Black girls. I love you all. Have an incredible evening. And of course, thank you to Bishop Flunder, who's always helping us to carry the conversation and move it forward. We are grateful for you and your presence. Everyone, have a wonderful evening.